All right, Beer Night followers, this is what you are here for, right? Our top 5 music segment.
They're
right?
not here for the beer review?
No, they're not. They're following under the Nightwish program that we got going on with Ryan.
Who?
Calm down. This is
I meant who's Nightwish?
Nightwish. Not the greatest band ever on YouTube.
Easy, Romeo.
Easy. I'm enjoying Nightwish. Yeah, our reaction videos. Check out our reaction videos on Nightwish with Ryan, talking new metal music segment that we do. Check
Nightwish is a great band.
Great band. We're getting into them deep. But this is our top 5 segment. Top 5 sophomore albums.
You know who's not on my top 5 list for sophomore albums? Nightwish.
Okay.
Honestly enough.
Yeah.
They have some great albums,
They
but
do.
it did not quite make my
cut.
sophomore albums.
All right. Fair enough.
Not quite make it.
Fair enough. Not mine either. I guess I'll go first with this lovely top 5 segment. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. What is your top 5? I will go ahead and start with number 5. Number 5 is System of the Down, Toxicity. I love System of the Down. It's such a... They have so many hits on that album. It's ridiculous. So many hits. And even if they're not hit songs, a lot of their other songs on that album are so catchy. They're written such a catchy, dynamic album, Toxicity. It's such a step up from their debut album. They definitely moved into the mainstream with Toxicity. I literally grew up with that album, Toxicity. I try to play a couple of their songs on drums and bass, try to learn some of their shit. And it's definitely an awesome album. I enjoy that album from start to finish.
So I used to love that album.
Yeah.
Back in the day. I think it was fantastic.
So do I. It's fantastic.
But then I just outgrew it.
You outgrew it?
Kind of like,
I
can't even listen to it now. Like it just doesn't work for me anymore.
No.
It worked for me great at one point in time, but it just doesn't work for me. I don't know what it is. I felt like I just kind of outgrew System of a Down. They just didn't really do it for me anymore. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, that's happened with many bands before. Nirvana comes to mind. Of course, I was much younger kid when I was in Nirvana, and then I grew up and matured and realized that Nirvana was juvenile. So System of a Down,
same
it's not quite there because I do feel like they have a little bit more going on.
Yeah. I mean, if you look from
their
debut
album, it's close. It's close to that. It's kind of close.
Toxicity, mainstream recognition from that album definitely skyrocketed them.
So
huge start. Toxicity,
Toxicity,
Ariel's fucking Needles,
Arielcicity,
the Prison
Needlecicity, Prisonticity. Okay, I'm
Ottawa. I mean, a lot of their songs.
So
Polka. I mean, Jet Pilot, and a lot of their songs are just so freaking amazing on that album. My number 4 album, sophomore album. I'm gonna go Alter Bridge, Blackbird.
Alter Bridge,
yes,
interesting.
Because their debut album, One Day Remains, they're coming off of the Creed shit. So Creed fell apart, right? So
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess. So they kind of, it's still Creed with a new singer is what it is. So One Day Remains, that debut album was all right. It's still like Creed-ish almost with the songwriting, but Blackbird fucking drove them to the stratosphere. It is a huge fucking album. It ties that blind. Rise Today, the actual epic song, Blackbird, really, really good song. Wayward Son, I can't think of any of their songs off the top of my head right now. But that album, like Miles Kennedy singing on that album is amazing. The guitar playing on that song is amazing. Mark Tremonti does a really good job. That album definitely broke them. They skyrocketed with that album. Huge, so much better than the debut album. That's why this is called Sophomore Albums. Number 4, Blackbird Alter Bridge. You never really listened to that one.
Never got an Alter Bridge.
No.
Too much of a sour taste in my mouth with Creed.
Yeah.
But I've actually heard plenty of Alter Bridge where I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty good stuff.
All right.
Just never like formally got into it.
No. Fair enough. That happens. Number 3 debut album, sophomore album, Alice in Chains' Dirt.
Classic.
About. I dare say this is a flawless fucking album from start to finish.
Flawless.
Dare to say it. It maybe got 1 or 2 clunkers in there, but
it's close. It's close.
It's got close. A lot of fucking
really close.
I can listen to that album start to finish.
And you know what? This is
such a fucking amazing album.
This catches me a little bit because while I would not put it on my top 5, I feel like it should have been in my honorable mentions, but it's not. No. And it probably should have been.
It should have been. Yeah.
It catches me a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it catches me.
You start the album with Them Bones, right? Mm-hmm. A fucking amazing. It just fucking just hits you right in the face. And Damn That River, next song.
Rain When I Die. Rain When I Die.
Down in a Hole follows that.
Rain When I Die and Down in a Hole. Like, that's a 1-2 punch right there.
Fucking Sick Man, Rooster, Junkhead. Like, god damn, this album. Dirt. Fucking Godsmack.
Angry Chair.
Wood to end the album. Like, oh my, like fucking start to finish.
It's a good album.
Great fucking really good album. Great album. That's my number 3 for sophomore albums. Number 2. Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I mean, their debut album obviously is like we give it so much praise in the past on our top 5s. Paranoid, I mean, it starts off with War Pigs.
I mean, it's a classic.
It's a classic.
It's just album. An absolute classic.
They definitely moved up the notch with that second album.
It's one of those albums too that gets better with age.
It does.
Like Sabbath to me has, because I'd obviously heard a lot of their stuff when I was younger, right? Mm-hmm. But then as I got a little bit older, teenage years and even early 20s, I would listen to it and be like, my God, this is 1970? Like these guys are just crushing it right now. Crushing it.
And you got the song Paranoid, which I actually grew accustomed to liking a lot more ever since I kind of learned how to play it on bass. You know, it's and singing at the same time, so it's a really fun song to play. So I actually enjoy that song a lot.
You want a good song to play on bass? War Pigs.
Yeah, this War amateur Pigs is not going to.
Geezer, you are the man on War Pigs.
The man.
Yeah. Bass on War Pigs is
Planet Carvin, which is an amazing guitar.
Planet Caravan.
Caravan. Caravan?
Carvin?
Whatever.
Who? Where?
I mean, obviously, Iron Man's on that fucking album. Flawless. Electric Funeral, which doesn't get a lot of love.
Super doomy.
And then I love fucking Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots. Like, Fairies Wear Boots is fucking...
Yeah, Fairies Wear Boots is great.
Fucking great fucking...
Classic. It's classic.
Classic.
I mean, it's a classic album.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic 70s hard rock album.
Yeah.
But, like... It kind of had to attain. What's cool about Sabbath is they had to attain that Sabbath. That status. Excuse me. I said that status. They had to attain that status because at the time, they were the black sheep.
They were
because they were too heavy.
Led Zeppelin, Beatles,
but they were too heavy.
Yeah,
they were too heavy and too dark. And then they slowly kind of got to the point where you tune into classic rock radio and you'd hear War Pigs, you'd hear Paranoid, you'd hear Fairies Wear Boots. Mm-hmm. Because they were great songs, but they're also super heavy. If you were into metal, right, you'd hear this and be like, wow, this is good. What is this shit?
Crazy shit.
And then add on to that the fact that what always sold Sabbath for me is that it's timeless music. It still plays and is still heavy and mean and nasty.
Oh, yeah.
By today's standards.
Fairies Wear Boots, like that fucking just bangs so hard, and it's not even the hit off that album. And just the way that
it became one, but it became one decades later. Yeah. Like what's great about that album is that it was released in 1970, but Fairies Wear Boots. I remember listening to radio stations in the early 2000s, and like if you listen to the radio enough, you would hear Fairies Wear Boots. Like it kind of found a newfound popularity with that particular song, right? Warpig's the same way, where they play it all the time, even though it was a 30-year-old song. And it kind of just it gained traction over the time. But what really seals Sabbath for me is not only are they heavy and nasty by today's standards, but whenever I listen to them, I'm transported back to that era. I can't help but think about that era when it came out and realize that they were thinking. Well, but realize that people didn't like people didn't accept it. Right? It was so different and so radical that it didn't find its mainstream audience. It's played on the radio now far more than it was back then. But that almost makes it cooler to me. Like it's cool to me that people are realizing how great this is. Even if it took decades, it almost makes it cooler. It's like it took people time to realize that this is great stuff. And it helped that heavy metal became a more viable genre and stuff like that. But they invented it.
They did.
They literally invented it. They are ground zero. Period. End of story. I don't want to hear about Iron Butterfly. I don't want to hear about Wild Thing or some bullshit. No. The first Black Sabbath album is ground zero for heavy metal. Paranoid refined it and made it, dare I say, radio friendly while still being great and heavy at the same time.
And you would think that would be my number one, but it's not. My number one...
Wasn't it number 3? It was Dirt number 3.
Dirt number 3.
Dirt was number 3.
Paranoid number 2.
What was number 4?
Alter Bridge, and the System of Down.
Got it.
So number
now
one,
I'm on track.
Number 1 is, I mean, you can't go wrong. You know, Black Sabbath created it. Metallica carried the fucking torch, right? All the way to where it is now. Fucking Ride the Lightning for Metallica. Sophomore album.
It's pretty.
It's pretty fucking epic.
Yeah.
Unbelievable album.
You almost when you listen to it, you almost forget it's a sophomore.
Yeah,
album. Like it sounds like a veteran band.
Like
it's so
how the fuck did they just go from that fucking Kill 'Em All to that?
And Kill 'Em All, by the way, is fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's very fantastic.
Great, but there's such a leap to Ride. Like there's such a leap there that it's almost when they became godly because the songwriting just took a whole another turn.
So amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing songwriting. I mean, Fight Fire with Fire is okay song. It's good to...
It's great.
You know, start off...
Okay. Come on. It's great.
I'd rather have Ride of Lightning start that album than Fight Fire with Fire.
Stop it.
I wish that one was number 1.
Stop it. Going from Fight Fire with Fire into Ride of Lightning is one of the greatest 1-2 punches to open an album.
Okay.
Come on. It's great.
I mean, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black. I mean, Trapped Under Ice, Creeping Death, Escape, fucking Call of Cthulhu, just flawless fucking album, sophomore album. What a huge leap Metallica took. That thrash fucking sound that they did,
but it's thrash. But then they changed the way the thrash music was played because they added the songwriting and really the groove element, right? So when you go into Ride the Lightning. And when you go into For Whom the Bell Tolls, like Ride is a groove song. It has a thrash section in the middle, but it's a groove song. So is For Whom the Bell Tolls, and then Fade to Black.
Bell Tolls is definitely
it's a groove. It's a groove song. It's pure groove. It's
I
not
love playing it on bass.
And then Fade to Black is a ballad, right? It's the first ballad by like a thrash band, and you know at the time, it's kind of like what we were just talking about with Sabbath. It wasn't appreciated at the time, right? People thought it was a sellout at the time, but then how many times has that song been ripped off?
Oh my God. So much.
So an ungodly amount for heavy metal bands to play an epic ballad because you had the normal 80s ballads, like the hair metal bands would do like the power ballads, right? The cheesy ass power ballads. Yeah. Fade to Black kind of created a new kind of ballad, the epic ballad, as I always like to call it, where it was this big epic ass song, but we call it a ballad because it's a metal band with clean guitars, and like slower parts and softer parts. So we had to call it
thrash.
We had to call it
shreds at the end.
But we had to call it a ballad because that's all we could label it with.
Yeah.
But so I always just call it an epic ballad because it's this big epic ass song. And I'm not saying I invented that term because other people probably use it too. But the point is that they really kind of added a whole nother dimension that wasn't appreciated at the time, right? People still loved them, don't get me wrong. But they got a lot of flack for it as well. And now, I mean, every single, what metal band
does
not have that in their catalog?
Yeah, exactly. On every album. Exactly. On every album they do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to have some sort of Fade to Black out.
You got to have the Fade to Black
on there. Exactly. You just have to. And then Creeping Death, is just, Metallica played that song opening their live sets all the time from recent memory. And it's such a great fucking song. I actually love playing that song on bass. I learned that it's so hard.
Really fun to play guitar too.
Yeah, it's a very fun song to sing too. It's just, whoo.
It's very well written. It's very well. It's from every instrument. It's very well written. The lyrics are fantastic.
Yeah, they are.
The story it tells of the place of each episode. It's a great metal song.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my top 5. Should I do honorable mentions, or you want to
go for it? You can do honorable mentions, or unless you want to do honorable mentions at the same time.
No, let me do mine first. Okay. Honorable mentions that I got: Fear Factory, Demanufactured. Really good sophomore album from Soul of the Machine. Right?
Soul of the Machine is the first album.
That's the first album. Really good step up for them. Really good. Macedon, Leviathan. Such a good fucking step up for them from their debut album as well. And you're gonna love this. Slipknot, Iowa is good fucking jump from their debut album.
I hate that album.
Whatever.
I hate it.
Barren Earth, The Devil's Resolve. Very good. Fucking their debut album was good. Their second album, amazing. It's what got me actually into that band, that album. Deftones, Around the Fur. Ginger. Cloud Factory. Such a good album from...
Cloud Factory is great. Cloud Factory is great.
Great album. Lamb of God, Ashes of the Awake. I know you're not a big Lamb of God fan, but that album fucking made them fucking skyrocket into the stratosphere right there. I know you're not a big fan of Stone Sour. Come Whatever May, definitely a big jump from their debut album. Gojira, The Link. I definitely love that album.
It's great.
It's a great album. Definitely a good step up too, right? From their debut
the only reason why that did not make my honorable mentions is because I feel like Terra Incognita is such a great debut album.
Really? Okay.
I like Terra Incognita better than The Link.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Link is great.
It's great. It's great.
I like Terra Incognita just a little bit better.
A little bit better? Yeah. Right. Anthrax, Spreading the Disease, right?
That's
with
good.
Joey.
That's really good. Right? Spreading the Disease is great.
Very fucking with
great.
that house.
Do you know what that should be on my? I might have missed it on my honorable mentions. Spreading the Disease is great. Yeah,
those are my honorable mentions. Hopefully you enjoyed my top 5. This guy motherfucking didn't, but whatever.
Well, I enjoyed some of it.
What is your top 5, Mr. Chris?
All right, let's see.
All you know. Everything.
Let's see if you enjoy mine.
All right.
Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. Okay, so I'm gonna go. This one's gonna be a little bit more obscure. Okay, but some of you out there might appreciate this. My number 5 is gonna be Agloc.
All right.
The Mantle.
Huh?
The Mantle. So
we've talked about
in metal circles, right? In deep, dark metal circles. The Mantle is a very highly revered album, and for really, really good reasons. Yeah. Because, I didn't fully appreciate it when I first got it. Yeah. I liked it, but I liked the album that came after that a little bit more, and then I liked the album that came before it pretty much equal.
Okay.
But then, upon repeated listens, I realized and I kind of grasped how much they kind of progressed from the first album.
Yeah.
And how actually it was better than the album that came after, that followed it.
Right.
There's so much to chew on as there is with any Agloc album, anybody who listens to Agloc, you know what I'm saying, right? There's so much to chew on, so much to digest. Yeah. But the Mantle does so much with melody. Not just with the vocals, right? The vocals took another step melodically, but instrumentally, what they're doing melodically is almost unforgettable on that album. Like, there's so much of it that sticks with you. Doesn't necessarily sink in right away. But after you listen to the album a few times, a lot of it just sticks with you melodically, right? What they're doing with the acoustic guitars, what they're doing with a lot of the melodies with the electric guitars and stuff like that. There's a lot of harmonizing and a lot of melody going on there that is really second to none in a lot of ways. It's basically progressive black metal, I guess, because it has black metal elements, but it's also super prog. A lot of Pink Floyd elements, honestly. I can get into that. A lot of psychedelic kind of Pink Floyd elements mixed with kind of progressive and then some kind of harder edged black metal elements. Anyway, it's a great fucking album. I really enjoyed their debut album is actually the first album by them that I ever got. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. Okay. I really liked it a lot. And then the Mantle kind of eventually kind of took over as just making me realize that, wow, they really took a huge jump from the first album to the second album. It's really great.
Number 5, baby.
Number 4 for me is The Devil's Resolve by Baron Earth.
That was my honorable mentions. Okay.
So I've really loved this band since I first heard them. Because this was maybe it even came out at the right time when I was not really into the death metal stylings. Yeah. But I was starting to get there, particularly when listening to European death metal, when the vocals were a little bit more back in the mix. Yeah. They weren't as over the top and out in front and frankly as cheesy as some of the American death metal bands. Mm. And so I heard Baron Earth and I would hear these really deep, kind of gnarly, guttural death metal vocals mixed with some really, really infectious melodies. Yeah. But also the death metal vocals were back in the mix. They weren't like clobbering you over the head, which is something I always noticed with American death metal. It was almost, the vocals were almost too much. They would overpower the music, right? Mm-hmm. So Baron Earth really crossed that bridge for me to their first album. I loved, right? Where it was a progressive death metal band, and I loved it, and it opened a lot of doors to me. Other bands had done this a little bit before them, but they really opened the pure death metal doors to me a lot into bands that way. And so the second album, though, is where it really took off. The Devil's Resolve is one of my favorite death metal albums of all time. The songwriting is fantastic. The melodies that they create are fantastic. There's so much going on there. I could play so many songs for people on that album and be like, this is a death metal band, and totally blow their minds because because when they think death metal carries a stigma, right? People who don't listen to it,
blast beats and
they have a stigma. They have an idea in their head of what it is. Mm-hmm. I could play some songs off this album where they'd be like, wow, this is totally not what I expected. So that makes it a great album.
You got me into Baron Earth with this album. Yeah. It's a great album. That's why it's in my honorable mentions. The song as it is written, just flawless fucking song, and the way that song ends with like incredible,
super epic
solo, and
but it's also
pedal solo almost.
It's also just an exhibition in prog metal.
Yeah, it is, because it's got a cool like piano middle section as well. It's like almost like if I play this middle section to my Christian family, they wouldn't know what's going on until like it starts getting into the death metal song.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, it's
pretty interesting.
It's an exhibition in prog metal, but it's a death metal band. So that's what makes it really cool, is that you can realize that death metal can break out of that stigma, right? And maybe a lot of death metal fans don't care. They're elitist, right? They don't want other people to be able to listen to it and be able to swallow it. Yeah. I get that if you're an extremist, but to me, I really like the fact that they can branch out and they can do things that are so, what makes the genre great, right? What makes metal in general, but even subgenres like death metal fantastic is that you have bands like Opeth, you have bands like Barren Earth, you have bands like Agloc, right, which can do so many different things than just being blast beat, and guttural and grindy and stuff like that. Right, anyway, good one. Number 3 for me is Demanufacture by Fear Factory. Okay. So I can get into this one. I feel like Fear Factory to me is criminally underrated. Yeah. So it is. It definitely is. There's such a great band, and the songwriting and the concepts, right? Like because they do conceptual albums. Mm-hmm. All their albums are themed, and the concepts they come up with, like it's so palpable to me. I feel it in my soul a lot of times. Yeah. Like it part of it's because I'm really into movies, and I can tell that Burton in particular, maybe the other guys in the band, they're really into movies as well. So there's a very cinematic feel to a lot of their music where I feel like it would fit very well in a movie context. And it's storytelling, right? And they do a great job with that. So
it's like almost Terminator
well, Demanufacture is. Yeah, Demanufacture is totally inspired by Terminator. Yes. Later albums go off onto other tangents, but Demanufacture is purely inspired by Terminator. And they even use some of the sound effects from the movie and stuff like that in the loops of the song. They do. But regardless of that, is what makes this album landmark to me is it's one of the early albums that really mixed the harsh vocals with the clean big choruses, which is so commonplace now. Mm-hmm. So we talked about how Fade to Black, how every band has ripped that off since then, right? Well, I feel like Fear Factory does not get enough credit for being a pioneer of that harsh to clean sound. Yeah. Because they were doing it so early on. They were. So early on. I agree. They even predated the nu metal bands they were doing. Because nu metal bands were doing it too. You mentioned Slipknot. I mean, they were doing it freaking 6-7 years before Slipknot. Korn did it a little bit. Korn didn't go into full scream a lot of times, but sometimes they did. But Fear Factory was doing it even before a lot of the nu metal bands really got super popular into the mainstream. And Fear Factory still had that hard edge, that kind of death metal feel, but also the industrial, the electronic elements, which to me, what draws me into Fear Factory,
really into what it
and what draws me into them a lot is those electronic elements, because there's this melody there. There's this kind of, because the music can be very dry and mechanical by design. It's not a negative thing. But then they'll add these soaring electronic melodies that just take it to another level, and that hit you in the soul, and that add kind of, again, the storytelling element. Even without the lyrics, you can the music almost tells a story sometimes. And I feel like they're kind of unsung for that, and they deserve a little bit more credit, especially because how early. I mean, Demanufacture came out in 92, I think. 92?
92. 92.
I mean, really? Fucking great album for the time. Now, I am not one of the Fear Factory fans that will say Demanufacture is their best album. Yeah, I actually feel like Obsolete is better because of the story that it tells. I think
a lot of people would agree with that. Obsolete is
most people say Demanufacture.
Really?
Yeah, Demanufacture for Fear Factory fans.
Because the story of what Obsolete is.
That's what makes it for me is the story of Obsolete mixed with the songwriting. Yeah. Kind of takes it over the top, but I also am a huge fan of Archetype.
Yeah. I like Archetype too. I even like their newest one,
Genesis is a great album. It's fantastic.
If you have
Mechanized
is fantastic.
So they've done so much good stuff. And I feel like a lot of people just will always point, Demanufacture is all they did. So while I'm putting it in my top 5 because it is an amazing sophomore album, I will say their other albums deserve a lot of attention as well because they have made some great stuff. While not every album has been top notch, okay, whatever. No band has, including your favorites. That's right. Whoever you name, I'll find a bad album for them.
Oh my God. Here we go.
Go fuck yourself, Slipknot fan. Iowa, top 5.
It's not my top 5. It's my honorable mentions. Calm down.
Okay.
God damn.
Close enough.
Give me your number. That was number 3, right?
Number dos.
Now, what's your number dos?
My number dos is Images and Words from Dream Theater.
All right. That's spot on. I like that one. There you go.
Like
I forgot about that one.
And you know what?
That's a good one.
This album gets better with age.
It does.
The more you listen to it, the more you realize, wow, this is a really amazingly well-written album. It's just a masterpiece from start to finish. And there's probably there's one song on the album I don't really care for, Surrounded.
Yeah.
But I can still listen to it. And everything else on the album, especially the way it flows and the way it fucking ends. Oh my God.
Learning to Live. I love that song.
Wait for Sleep into Learning to Live.
Yeah.
Both of them, you gotta listen together.
You do.
I never, ever once listened to one without the other.
No. That is true. You gotta listen to it back to back.
Never, ever listen to one without the other. Because it fits so perfectly, not to mention that Learning to Live reprises the main theme from Wait for Sleep, but an octave lower.
Yes.
And it's perfect. That's right. It's so perfect the way they bring it back, but an octave lower. And it's just perfect.
Amazing musicians, amazing. Yes. They know
how to the forethought, right? The writing is just it's by design, right?
Like they know what the fuck they're doing.
Yes, exactly. It's a piece. It's an overall piece. Even though it's 2 tracks, it's an overall piece that weaves together. That if you've listened to the track that precedes it, you get rewarded when you get to that section of the next one. Because you're like, oh, it's a callback to this, but an octave lower, and it fits, right? And it's just that rewarding listening experience, very similar to like a concept album, right? Even though it's not a concept album, but very similar to that.
Didn't we watch this them live with their they did this album?
They played it start to finish.
We didn't even watch it live, right?
Yes, we did. We saw it live. On the anniversary, 25th anniversary. Yeah, 25th anniversary.
There you go.
Because that came out.
That was really good. We saw it at the Wiltern, I believe, right? Wiltern?
Yes, the Wiltern.
Yeah.
So that came out. That album also came out in '92, along with the manufacturer. So, so we saw it in 2017, right? That would have been 25 years. Yeah, so there you go. So
I remember that.
It's great. It's great.
Good shit.
It's a great album by a great band. Don't believe what the haters tell you. It's a great band.
Great band.
This album is very Rush. If you like Rush, then you will love Images and Words. No doubt in my mind.
Yep.
If you don't, there's something wrong with you. Number 1, with a bullet.
All right.
I mean, I guess it's Ride the Lightning.
I mean, come on.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we already talked about it.
Right.
So a couple things.
Think alike, right?
So a couple things I'll mention that maybe you didn't is that the opening of Fight Fire with Fire.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's an okay song like you. Okay. I'm going to say that it
I love this song.
It opens with such a bang in the mold of Kill 'Em All, but what immediately separates it from Kill 'Em All is the acoustic intro.
Yeah, I agree
with that.
Which
we talked about how Fade to Black has been ripped off 1,000 times.
That
hello? How about the acoustic intro to a thrash song being ripped off ad nauseum? Not just Shadows Fall.
I know, not just Shadows, but they've done it a lot.
Like, how many bands have now done an acoustic interlude to precursor a thrashy song?
Yeah. A lot.
Very over much. And over and over and over again.
Thank you, Metallica.
Over and over and over again. Now, not that Metallica was the first ones to ever do it, because Black Sabbath did it as well. I point you to Master of Reality, which did it twice on the same album. Metallica was just pioneered it with the thrash coming after it, right? It breaks into this insane thrash song with this like kind of really classical sounding acoustic intro. And very beautifully classical orchestrated sounding acoustic intro. And I mean, that's timeless. It's duplicated so much, like in this genre. Like you almost can't go to an album without hearing it somewhere. At least in a modern day album.
That's true.
From there, Ride the Lightning, great groove song. Same to For Whom the Bell Tolls. It really kind of showed that they were breaking away from the thrash elements of Kill 'Em All. Fade to Black, great ballad. You have the Creeping Death, which is the all-around kind of freight training kind of thrash song where it's not super fast, but it's driving. It does. Call of Cthulhu. instrumental with the first instrumental they did, and they followed it up with 2 instrumentals that even surpassed it in my eyes. A lot of people still think Call of Cthulhu is their best, but I think the instrumentals they did after that even surpassed it. But Call of Cthulhu is great. The mood it creates,
it's good. Yeah.
The flow it creates,
and to do an instrumental too, like no band,
not just an instrumental.
Because bands really do one.
Bands did instrumentals, really, but they didn't do an instrumental song.
Yeah.
Where it's a song.
It's like 9 minutes, I think, right?
Yeah, and it's a song. Yeah. Like it feels like a song, just without lyrics. What a novel idea, right? It seems so simple, but nobody would ever do it because you got to have a singer, right?
Yeah, you got to sing.
Everybody loves a singer.
Love singing. No.
But the idea of just doing a song without vocals and having it work, right? Not having it drag, not having it be boring. It works. It works perfectly fine on the merit of the music alone. Yeah. Plenty of other bands did instrumentals before that, or did long instrumental sections. But they were one of the first to do it as just a song where it flowed and progressed like a normal song would, but without lyrics. And it works. It works perfectly. And they duplicated it many times after that.
And it's a perfect number 1 for you. You got any honorable mentions?
I got plenty of honorable mentions.
We can go forever.
As per usual,
yes,
I have a lot of honorable mentions. Okay. So I'm just going to go down my list here. Stronger Than Death, Black Label Society. So
good shit right there. I like that one. That's a good one.
Heavy as fuck. Now their debut album is fantastic. Yeah.
It's
great.
Definitely a good bump up.
It just got heavier. It did, but in a good way, like not in a gratuitous way. Just it's a good way where heavier served it. Paranoid, Sabbath. Yeah. So you mentioned it. So the only reason why it's not in my top 5 is because I probably like Master Reality, the third album, a little bit better. Jester Race by In Flames. So In Flames is one of my favorite metal bands of all time. Love In Flames so much. Jester Race is when they really became In Flames to me. I have their album that they did before that without their main vocalist they have now that's been there for 25 years now. And it's good. It has some good stuff on it, but Jester Race is really when they laid the mold along with, they weren't the only ones. There was also, At the Gates, Dark Tranquility. But when they laid the mold for melodic death metal, you hear it there and it's great. There's so many great songs on that album. So Led Zeppelin 2.
That's a really good one.
The only reason, I don't want to say the only reason because there's lots of bands, there's lots of albums competing for my top 5, right? But one of the only reasons I'll say is that their first album is so great.
It is. I agree.
And so powerful. Yes. With the blues elements and just the darkness. Like 2 was more of a hard rock album, more straightforward hard rock, less. It's still very bluesy, but a little less on the dark kind of moody blues and more on the rock side, the hard rock kind of element. Still great though. I mean, it's timeless. It's absolutely timeless. Diary of a Madman by Ozzy fucking Osbourne. Oh my God, it's such a great album. That's a good one. His first album is fantastic as well. And the fact that he came out of Black Sabbath, no one thought he would be shit. And then he just went on this solo career that had produced so many classic albums, so many classic, timeless songs. His voice is forever etched in my brain. Yeah. Like I will never ever forget. Long after he is dead, I will never forget a lot of his lyrics, a lot of his melodies, and a lot of his guitar players' work. Quite frankly, Diary of a Madman is another great example of that. I put Vocal Display of Power on here. It's kind of cheating.
It is a little bit.
It's not their second album. Yeah. It's not. But it's the proper second album by Pantera that we all choose
to believe that Cowboys from Hell is their very first.
But it's not.
Vulgar is their very.
They were a hair metal band before that. So just to show that bands can improve.
They can. There you go. I enjoy that one. Let's go.
I've also got Of One Blood by Shadows Fall. So Shadows Fall to me.
Your debut?
No. Somber Eyes to the Sky is their debut album. So
didn't you put Of One Blood in their debut album?
Maybe I did.
I think you did.
That's a mistake if I did.
Because the Art of Balance would be the
Somber Eyes to the Sky. Somber Eyes to the Sky is their debut. I might have just messed up putting Of One Blood in there. Of One Blood is technically their second album. Now, I may have cheated too because it's their
You
first
might
album with Brian Fair.
Yeah.
But the jump from songwriting and
Yeah.
from epicness, from Samurais to the Sky to A One Blood is huge.
It is, okay. Yeah.
Having Brian Fair in there made a huge difference as well. It's just such a great album compared to the first one, and also a great album for the new wave of American heavy metal. It's still one of the best.
I can definitely put Art of Balance in there too, as if you just go
just
go Brian Fair and cheat.
Yeah, and then Art of Balance would definitely
way better.
Yeah, definitely be
there.
Okay. Louder Than Love by Soundgarden.
Yeah,
so
that's good shit right there.
So now this is kind of cheating too, because I've always considered. This is me personally. I've always considered the Screaming Life and FOP EPs, the combo package that was released, as being their first album. Okay. Technically, it's not, because it's 2 EPs combined into one. So technically, their first album would be Ultra Mega OK, meaning their second album would be Louder Than Love. I kind of nerded out. A little Soundgarden nerd moment on you there.
I mean,
because
Love.
I'm a gigantic fan of this band. I know everything about them. I know when they started and blah, 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 blah. So, personally, I've considered Screaming Life and FOP to be their first album, which means Ultra Mega OK would be their second album. But if I wanted to go official full-length album releases, Louder Than Love would be a sophomore, which means it makes it on my list.
There you go.
Lastly, I got Altered States by Tesseract. It's my favorite Tesseract album.
Not mine, but still
it is.
Album.
It's good. It's their best album.
Yeah.
Stop it. It's their best album. It's their best album. Musically, it surpasses the first album, which is great. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But musically, it definitely surpasses the first album. There's so much more going on from a technical standpoint and from a songwriting standpoint. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Well, that's our top 5 sophomore albums. If you got a better list, and you probably fucking don't, because we are kings on lists, comment. Subscribe.
We do lists.
We're kings of lists. List your top 5 sophomore albums if you got a better one, which I highly doubt. Please subscribe, comment.
You know what?
Like this video.
If you like some of the albums that we named, maybe you should comment as well.
Exactly.
If you believe some of our honorable mentions should be in the top 5 instead. You know, I'm open to suggestions.
Slipknot Iowa should definitely be in my top 5 instead of Alter Bridge.
You're right. You're right. Slipknot Iowa should be in your top 5 most disappointing, worst, boring ass albums.
Fuck yourself. Bagging on Slipknot. Cheers to ya. We got more for you. Episode 11, baby.